The Lord's Resistance Army versus the Ottoman Empire Janissaries. The similarities between groups involved the benefits that political leaders obtain for using and recruiting groups and social impacts on the families whose children are abducted, whereas the differences involve the motivation of the soldiers in order to comply with their leaders and the demographics of the communities who endure the kidnappings. The LRA was established in 1987 in northern Uganda by Joseph Kony, who created the group to abduct children from underdeveloped societies as a means to turn them into child soldiers for his mercenary group. These children are known as the invisible children due to the long period of time when the epidemic was not known internationally. Although the LRA operates in many different countries, helping corrupt political leaders, their main area of occupation includes northern Uganda, southern Sudan, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These specific nations are the ones that Joseph Kony hides in, works in, and steals children from. The Janissaries were established in 1363 by Murad I of the Ottoman Empire in order to create an infantry corps comprised of non-Muslim European children abducted out of their homes. These children were trained to fight for the rest of their lives to become the most prestigious infantry in the Ottoman Empire. Their occupation not only includes the infantry, but also the bodyguards of Murad and following leaders of the Ottoman Empire. This painting depicts how the leaders of the Ottoman Empire would instruct the Janissaries to march one by one down the streets of the Ottoman Empire. This also depicts the training and the sophistication a Janissary needs to be in order to become part of the infantry. We can also see from this picture that the Ottoman Empire's leaders would dress the Janissaries in very elegant uniforms and gave them scabbards at their sides. Both armies were very similarly used, which was for war and conquest. The only difference was that the LRA was on nobody's side, and that one contract might ask that they could be fighting for a specific country, and the next contract they could be fighting against that same country. The LRAs benefited political leaders in the succession of whatever task they were requested to do by Joseph Kony. As for the Janissaries, the political leaders would usually benefit from war and conquest that the Janissaries engaged in, such as weapon materials and agricultural resources. In addition, due to the Janissaries' allegiance toward the Ottoman Empire, the political leaders would always gain information, protection, or resources from whatever the Janissaries accomplished. The villages that the Ottoman Empire kidnapped from carried the same problems as the smaller northern Uganda villages affected by the LRA today, including manpower and resources taken. These problems revolved around the fact that if they have a smaller village and the younger and stronger part of their workforce is taken away from them, it will be harder for them to plant their crops and harvest their resources. This is considered a long-lasting impact because some villages affected by this epidemic took long periods of time to be fixed. In this picture below from northern Uganda, we are able to see how Joseph Kony's troops would invade a village, kidnap the children, and kill the parents. As you can see, not only will they take the large amount of their workforce, but they will also burn down the buildings in the village, making it nearly impossible for them to ever actually rebuild the village again. While the LRA used drugs and addictions in order to entice the children to fight, the Ottoman Empire would use citizenship into their community as a way to lure the enslaved children into becoming a janissary. The LRA's method was successful due to the motivation of the kids joining the resistance involved traumatizing the children and forcing them into an addiction to hard substances. After the child became addicted to the hard substance, they would stay in the LRA to be continually administered drugs. The LRA lets the children's addiction be the deciding factor in whether they stay in the Army or not. Although if they want to leave, they will be murdered. As for the Ottoman Empire, they capture non-Muslim children and tell them that if they become a Janissary, then they will become a citizen of the Ottoman Empire. This method worked because the slaves knew that the only way a non-Muslim could gain citizenship is to join the Ottoman Empire. As you can see from these two pictures, one painting depicts a Janissary being taught how to use a gun, while the other picture depicts a small child of the LRA being shown how to hold a gun with plants. In terms of the demographic, the main difference between the two stems from where the children were kidnapped. While the Ottoman Empire captured European children fishing on the coast, walking from village to village, and working in the fields, the LRA would capture children inside their own villages and also working on the fields. The reason why the two groups used different methods was because the amount of defense the two communities had. The LRA was able to storm villages and even kill the parents in front of the child due to the lack of protection and underdevelopment of the village. The Ottoman Empire could not use the same method because the European towns and villages had on par strength with the Ottoman Empire. This resulted in the Ottomans sneaking into the villages and kidnapping the children at night or while their parents weren't around. Although both methods were different, both worked because of the circumstances they were in. The picture on the right of this slide represents the countries affected by the Lord's Resistance Army. The picture on the left of this slide represents where the Ottoman Empire was and where they engaged in war and conquest. The LRA and Janissaries, despite the fact that they lived in different time periods and different areas, have similar attributes such as social impacts on the families of the captives, and that the main benefactors of the groups were political leaders. These two groups also showed different features to their armies in terms of the motivation of their troops and the demographic of the people that they have come across. These are the references I used in order to create this presentation.